Picture a typical Tuesday night. You walk into a living room and it's quiet. Not peaceful quiet, occupied quiet. The TV is on, maybe playing news or a show nobody is really watching. Mom is scrolling through emails on her phone, dad is checking sports scores. The kids are on the couch, but they're miles away, deep in a TikTok loop or a game.
Physically, everyone is there. They are within 5 feet of each other. But relationally, they might as well be on different continents. We call this modern life. We call it decompressing. But I saw a script recently that described this differently. It didn't call it relaxation. It called it the drift. And the question this script posed was uncomfortable. What if the antidote to this drift isn't just better time management or digital detoxes? What if it's something ancient that we've largely discarded? Today, we are looking at a listener submission that suggests the path back to family connection might actually be a path back to faith.
The drift is such a perfect word for it, isn't it? Because nobody plans to become strangers with their own children. You don't wake up one morning and decide, I'm going to ignore my spouse for the next 10 years. It happens in the margins. It happens one missed dinner at a time.
Exactly. It's passive, and that's what we're digging into. We're going to talk about this idea of finding our way back, but I want to be clear right up front. We aren't doing a sermon here. We are looking at the sociology of this, because the data on what is happening to the modern family is frankly alarming.
It is. And if you look at the research, particularly from the last few years, you see this collision between two trends. On one side, you have what researchers are calling technoliference, technology interference in relationships. And on the other side, you have the rapid secularization of the home. We've removed the rituals that used to force us to pause, and we've replaced them with algorithms designed to keep us scrolling.
Technoference. That sounds like a sci-fi term, but it's real life. I was reading a study from just this year, 2024, involving over 200 families. They found that for every additional minute of screen time a toddler is exposed to, the number of adult words they hear drops significantly. We are literally talking less.
It's a silence that fills the room, and that silence is where the drift happens. The listener script mentioned that faith was never meant to be a burden, but a foundation. And I think that's the key distinction. In a secular context, we often view religion as a set of rules. Don't do this, don't do that. But sociologically, faith functions as a technology of connection.
Okay, unpack that, because I can hear the skeptic listening right now saying, Eloise, I can have a family dinner without praying first. I can put my phone away without going to church. Why does the faith component matter for the connection part?
You certainly can have dinner without faith. But the data suggests that when you anchor family life in a shared spiritual practice, the quality of that connection changes. It comes down to something sociologists sometimes call the third thing.
The third thing?
Right. So in a dyad, just you and me, we are focused on each other. If we argue, it's my ego against your ego. But when you introduce a third thing, a higher power, a shared set of transcendent values, you are both looking at something outside yourselves. It triangulates the relationship. It takes the pressure off the ego.
So if I'm angry at you, but we both have a commitment to a standard of forgiveness that is bigger than both of us, I have to navigate that differently?
Precisely. If forgiveness is just a nice idea, I'll forgive you when I feel like it. If forgiveness is a spiritual mandate, I have to grapple with it even when I'm angry. The listener's text mentioned that faith teaches us how to lead with love instead of control. That's the shift. Without that external anchor, parenting often devolves into control. Do this because I said so.
Which works until they're about 14.
And then it collapses. But if the dynamic is we are both trying to align our lives with this higher purpose, then the parent is no longer the dictator. They're a fellow traveler. That completely changes the temperature in the home.
I want to circle back to the dinner table because the script brings this up as a central battlefield. It says faith brings conversations back home. There is some fascinating data on this. The Family Dinner Project and other researchers have consistently found that the frequency of family meals is the single strongest predictor of better achievement scores and fewer psychological problems in adolescence.
It's staggering. We're talking about lower rates of substance abuse, slower depression, higher resilience. And here is where the faith element kicks in again. Religious families are statistically more likely to prioritize that meal. It's not just about the food, it's the ritual. A prayer before the meal, even a short one, acts as a boundary marker. It says, the chaos of the day stops here. We are entering a sacred space.
It's a transition ritual. We don't have many of those left. Usually we just slide from work mode to Netflix mode. There is no hard stop.
And that slide is the drift. When you pause to say grace or to share a high and low of the day, you are artificially interrupting the drift. You are forcing presence. The script says faith doesn't divide families. It invites them back to the table. I love that imagery because the table is where we actually learn who our people are.
Let's play devil's advocate for a second. There is a generation of parents, millennials, Gen X, who drifted away from faith because they felt it didn't invite them to the table. They felt judged, or they felt it was all about compliance. How do you reconcile that trauma with this idea that faith restores values?
That is such a valid pushback, and the script actually addresses this in a really subtle way. It talks about faith giving us a moral compass and a place where grace still exists. The version of faith that drives people away is usually the one that lacks grace. It's the high control, high shame model.
Right, the sit down and shut up model.
Exactly, but the restoration of family values isn't about returning to the 1950s where we pretend everything is perfect. It's about returning to values like accountability and compassion. If your version of faith allows you to apologize to your kids when you lose your temper, that is transformative. If your faith teaches you that you are flawed and need help, that makes you a safer parent, not a stricter one.
That's a key distinction. Faith as a mechanism for humility rather than authority. The script lists values like respect, forgiveness, accountability. Those aren't just religious words. They are the glue of any relationship. But in a secular vacuum, where do those come from?
They come from the self, and the self is a shaky foundation. If my values are based on how I feel today, they will change when I'm tired or stressed. If they are based on a tradition that has weathered thousands of years, they hold up better under pressure. You know, Pew Research has been tracking this pessimism about the family. A lot of people feel the institution is crumbling, but the pockets where it's thriving, they almost always share these strong, transcendent third thing commitments.
So let's talk about the practical application. The script ends with this really gentle invitation. It says, maybe this is the moment to pause and come back. It's not demanding. For the listener who is thinking, okay, I see the drift in my own house. I see the screens taking over, but we haven't been to a church or synagogue in 10 years. How do they actually do this without it feeling fake?
You start small. You don't overhaul your entire life on a Monday morning. The script suggests simple things: a prayer at dinner, a moment of reflection. I would call these micro-rituals. You are just trying to reclaim territory from the noise.
I like that. Reclaiming territory. Maybe it's just deciding that Sunday morning is screen-free, even if you don't go to a service. Or maybe it's reading something together that asks big questions.
And it requires vulnerability. Parents have to be willing to say, hey guys, I feel like we're missing each other. I feel like we're drifting. I want to try something different. Authenticity cuts through the awkwardness. If you come in like a drill sergeant saying, we are a religious family now, it will fail. But if you come in saying, I want us to be closer, and I think we need some help, that is an invitation.
It goes back to that line in the text, faith grows best when it's invited, not imposed. That's a powerful parenting strategy in general, honestly. You can't impose connection. You can only create the environment for it.
And that environment needs protection. We have to defend our homes against the intrusion of the digital world. That is a spiritual battle, in a sense. It's a battle for attention. Simone Weil, the philosopher, once said, attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. Faith practices, prayer, sadeth, listening, they're essentially training grounds for attention.
That hits home, because when I look at that silent living room from the beginning of the episode, the parents on email, the kids on TikTok, what's missing is generosity. We are hoarding our attention for ourselves or giving it to strangers on the internet, instead of giving it to the people right in front of us.
And the tragedy is, we think we have time. We think we can fix it later. But the drift is cumulative. The distance grows day by day. The return, the script talks about, isn't just a return to a building or a creed. It's a return to each other.
I think that's the big takeaway here. We often frame the culture war or the decline of the family in these huge political terms, but the real battle is happening at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday. It's happening in the choice to turn off the TV. It's happening in the choice to ask, how are you really doing? And actually waiting for the answer.
And acknowledging that we need help to do that. That's the humility of faith. Admitting that we aren't enough on our own to keep these relationships healthy. We need a framework, we need a community, we need grace.
It's a hopeful message, really. It says the drift is inevitable. You can grab the oars. You can turn the boat around. It might be awkward at first. The muscles might be weak, but the current doesn't have to win.
The current doesn't have to win. I love that.
As we wrap up, I'd encourage you to think about that one small step. Maybe it's tonight. Maybe it's just the car ride home. What would it look like to interrupt the drift? If this conversation sparks something for you, send it to your spouse or a friend who you know is feeling that same disconnect.